Hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of Cavaliers Conversation. Kevin, the last time we did one, we were down at Quicken Loans Arena outside between the area between Progressive Field and the Q. We were talking in the rain with our good co-editor and good friend Chris Manning. We were, giving our initial reactions to, what the draft actually, what had happened, a couple hours before, maybe.
Still a lot of shuffling has going on since, but right away we had that initial impact, and we all were in ties too, which is a little bit different now. But yeah, down there talking, that was the last time, so it's been a little bit of a break, but I'm just glad to get back and kick another one off here.
Exactly, and we got to break down the games of Sergey Karasev and Anthony Bennett more in depth since then on the website through articles and stuff like that. But sometimes initial reactions are sometimes your best opinions because you're not flooded with all this outside information, other people's opinions like trying to influence you. But now that we do know a lot more about these players. I think it's time to kind of discuss where we were then and where we stand with them now. The time we recorded the video, it was actually during the Cavs' 2 first-round draft picks where they traded Crabbe to the Portland Trailblazers for 2 second-rounders, and they picked up Carrick Felix with their second-round pick. So let's start with our good friend Felix the Cat, a player who didn't really show out offensively in the summer league, but as we expected, he was a great defensive presence on the summer league team in Las Vegas, and not quite sure if he's going to make his way onto the roster this season.
You definitely could see him in Canton.
Definitely.
I think that might be a little bit more realistic, and frankly, I think it's probably best maybe if he started off the season there. That way, he can sort of work on his offensive game. And you see a lot of times like somebody like Luke Herringgold, he dominates in the D League and then comes up to the NBA and still is, at the bottom half and can't produce. But I think it is a good spot where he can work on, driving to the paint and stuff like that. Something that he has the body and athletic ability to do so, but in the D League he'll be able to sort of hone it a little bit and, again, even improve on his already above average defense.
We'll see where that goes, but let's work our way up. We'll talk about, Sergey Karasev. Now, about Sergey, you can go first. You were really fond of this pick, and so was I.
Right.
Because just 19-year-old who's got great form from beyond the arc. There's not too much known about his defensive abilities, even though people have have their knocks on it for some reason. I've heard great. I mean, his dad was his coach, and obviously he's not going to say too many things about it.
It's going to be slightly biased,
but from the other coaches and players he's worked with, being at the Nike Hoop Summit, he's familiar with that American style of play, that NBA pro level. He knows how the feel is going to be like, and he's coming over right away. So, I mean, there's so many pluses for an international prospect like Sergey. So, Kevin, before I go too far into taking too many points away, what do you think? What do you think now of those pick, especially with the signings of Earl Clark and I guess even Jared Jack for that reason, because some people could see him sliding to the 2 at times.
Yeah, well, initially rumors swirled that he was going to come over right away, so that sort of helped me like the pick even more. You know what I mean? Typically with a guy like an international, like, oh, well, is he going to have to? Are they going to have to buy him out? Is he going to have to sit overseas for 2 years? So with Sergey, that's definitely a plus with him. And now it's pretty much a lock that he's going to be over here, so I like that a lot more. Another thing, I was able to watch him in the World Championships, the international games, and he looked real good. Something that you didn't hear a lot about, but on numerous occasions, back-to-back, I saw him driving and dishing to open teammates and stuff. Something that, like a slasher, like somebody like Manu Ginobili that just gets to the basket and then creates looks for people because as the defense collapse, he kicks out. Saw him do that a lot and looked really, really fluent at doing it. So that was something that you didn't hear. You heard a lot about his shot and stuff like that in his offensive game, but you didn't hear a lot of him as a distributor, and that was something that I was able to pick up And I would love to see that out of not they don't have to be a point guard to pass,
Exactly.
So that's something that could create good ball movement. And if Kyrie, you know what I mean, if the defense collapses on Sergey as he cuts, Kyrie 3-point champion sitting over there in the corner, something that I really could really enjoy watching. It was nice with Sergey on the team. I didn't really get too good of a feel for his defense and whatnot, but he definitely looked like he was competing on the defensive end. It was not a lack of effort. That's not what I think the problem with his defensive game is going to be. It's not going to be because he doesn't want to play defense. He seems to have that attitude and that will to be good at it, and that's really the first step in becoming a defender too.
Yeah, and I agree with that, to a T, because watching the interview with him on Hoops Hype, I think they asked him, when's the time to put in work, like, when are you going to, look at, your first NBA check and, cash it and, go somewhere, enjoy your fun. He's like, now is not the time for me to enjoy anything. I mean, these next, 3 to 4 years, this is the time where, I have to, develop my game. I have to really, hone in on learning, the NBA pro style. And going off of that, he said that defensively, that's the main thing he wants to focus on, because his shot, he knows where he is at, with shooting ability, and like you mentioned with passing, he has great court vision for
definitely
for a wing player, and he can find those holes and cuts, and you've just heard so many great little tidbits about that, aside from his shooting ability, but what he's excited to be working with a guy like Coach Mike Brown, who we mentioned earlier, that he's going to be able to motivate these players to play better on the defensive end, because they're going to get playing time that way, and he's a player who definitely wants to see playing time. And
yeah.
He's who doesn't?
Right. Yeah. That sort of will to prove himself, and that drive to make a name for himself is definitely going to be really beneficial, because coming over from overseas, he doesn't want to get run out of here and have to go back and to Russia. He wants to stay over here and play the best basketball in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be something added on him, something that's going to be in the back of his mind, forcing him to work hard and get better.
And now on to the number 1 overall pick, the only draft pick the Cavaliers have not officially signed to a contract yet. I don't think there's really anything to look into that. There's a lot of top draft picks actually that haven't signed on with their teams yet officially to deals. But now Anthony Bennett, a player that our very young co-editor Chris Manning, he started. I'll use this thing as a prelude, but he mentioned that he was warm on the idea of drafting Bennett, but now as time progresses and seeing the moves that the Cavs made this offseason, he's kind of colder, seeing that he might not get as much playing time as he initially thought he would, and that's why I think, as Hiroki Witt wrote a couple weeks back about NBA rookies, number 1 picks who get, or high first round picks who get a lot of playing time, over 30 minutes, around that area, compared to those who see less than 20. There's
right.
The comparison. The gap's huge, and right. The thing is he's got to play. He's got to see court time, or he's just going to get lost and people are going to label him a bust.
Right.
Because he's not getting the time in the court that he needs to to develop properly.
Right, yeah, because practice is good for one thing, but there's nothing like in-game experience. And like you said, with the signings, like Bynum, you're sort of like, all right, even though Bynum's a center, still, Bennett's a power forward, so...
It crowds that front.
Right, it crowds, and even with Earl Clark, a 6'10" guy who's a more of a 3 and 4, not, he's not going to play 2 guard ever. You know what I mean? So that's another guy that's going to crowd the same kind of position that Anthony Bennett plays, so, yeah. Yeah, you kind of there's got to be minutes for him to have. And
I think those minutes, had to come at, in my opinion, they had to come at power forward. I just, as far as small forward goes, I still think that that's going to be a position that's, highly pursued by the Cavaliers front. I know we're talking about in the future, but in the 2014 offseason, I think that's going to be their main priority after passing on got a guy like Otto Porter with that #1 pick who is going to fit in quite nicely with Bradley Beal and John Wall. It's going to be interesting to see the Cavaliers and the Wizards, how those matchups play out during the season. But I definitely think that Bennett can be more of a threat at the 4, because I just don't. I know he has that range to be able to play the 3, to play at the small forward, but I just don't think he has the speed per se to be the small forward that we need him to be, and the defensive the frame and the defensive capabilities to do that as well.
Yeah, so my opinion of Bennett hasn't, his game, my opinion of what he'll bring to the, when he's on the court hasn't changed much. I still think he can be a productive NBA player. He's got a long wingspan, so I'm not really afraid of him rebounding and stuff like that. I don't really care that he's 6'7". I mean, his arms are 7'1", right? Mm-hmm. So that's what you're rebounding with. So I'm not worried about his height or anything like that. But I am sort of kind of like, well, who's not going to play then? There's only 48 minutes to go around, and there's only one basketball. You know what I mean? So, there's 5 spots on the floor, so somebody's going to have to be left out, and you're going to want to make sure that it's not Bennett. You haven't really, because he's still recovering from that shoulder injury, so you haven't been able to see much of his game and stuff. But, I'm still excited for him to join the team, but you just got to, trust Mike Brown on this one, and that he's going to do the right thing for the #1 overall pick.
And I think we need to see him, entrenched really in that PNR offense. I think that's what the most important thing. So I think we need to see him play this season. We need to see him play a lot with Kyrie Irving, Dion Waiters to see how things are going to flow in the PNR, because just watching film, Bennett's a great pick and pop guy. He's a great catch and release type player. And really, from anywhere on the court, this can be. We've seen his athleticism, slamming it down at the rim.
Right.
We've seen him knock down mid-range jumpers at UNLV, and then even slide out and shoot around 38% from beyond the college 3-point line. But I don't know how many 3-pointers we're going to see him take at the NBA level.
Right.
But he has that capability to really, I guess, be paired with a guy like Tyler Zeller, who really, once he finally got a grasp of the PNR, we saw him, his shooting percentages as they got further out from the paint. We saw them skyrocket toward the end of the season.
Right. Yeah.
Because he was getting more comfortable with the pick and pop, the PNR, and we knew that he was a good mid to long range shooter from his days at North Carolina. So I just hope that I don't want to throw Bennett into a situation where, because I just don't think we can, because I think we have viable stars already. Whereas in Zeller's situation,
last year we didn't have anybody to play center, so he had to. And then when Verjao got hurt, he definitely had to. You know what I mean? There was no choice at that point.
So yeah, I think that there's going to be a happy medium of how many minutes that we're going to see. I mean, 25.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be possible, especially with all these.
No, even because you got a guy like Tristan who's switched to shooting right-handed now. That our co-editor here, Chris Manning, tweeted a great link to that. So if you go through his feed and find that, great story, worth a read. But let's say a guy like Zeller Thompson develops his jump shot and really starts to become a lethal offensive threat. Mm-hmm. There were some less minutes going to Bennett. So I think 25 is safe, but depending on how everybody else plays, if Bynum is healthy and can play 38 and give you 19 and 12 again, and Verjao stays healthy, I mean, something's got to give, so you're going to want to be cautious. But I think at the start of the year, 25 is a very, very safe bet to say how much time we'll see.
So, I mean, the main thing of Bennett, I would say, that we're taking away is that he needs to see time.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, and without it, you'll never really know what he can be. So.